Hey guys, today is the Daily Cyber. I'm here with Ted Demopoulos. We're going to be talking about his book, InfoSec Rock Star, and just some tips and strategies about breaking the industry. So let's hack at it. So hey guys, I'm here again with Ted Demopoulos from InfoSec Rock Star. Ted, thank you so much for the interview today.
Brendan, my pleasure.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. I mean, people haven't, met you or read your book.
Sure. I started as a normal geek, like many of us do, and the technical skills came easy to me. I mean, I worked on them, and they were hard, but it was what I was excited by. And the one thing that I didn't realize is there were other skills, like being able to communicate and being able to, get out of your own way and finish things, and just some basic time management, which sounds kind of silly, that I just didn't have down.
Right.
And that was really limiting how effective I was and so forth.
Okay. So now, do you find that's a skill that a lot of tech people don't have?
I do. Although, I mean, there is the stereotype of the geek that just wants to sit in the corner and not talk to anybody, and that's not really true.
Right.
But there's some truth to that.
Right. Yeah, because they're kind of socially awkward, right? And
right.
I think one thing I've been talking to a lot of HR managers and hiring managers, they kind of divide the cybersecurity, InfoSec type people. It's either very technical or very sociable, and there's just this line in between.
And there's a line in between, and there doesn't need to be, and it's not a strong line either.
Right.
You know, I was just talking to somebody that hires a lot of penetration testers, and a lot of people doing incident handling. And he told me the one thing he looks for that he has more difficulty finding is not people that are technically good or who he can train to be technically good, but people that can communicate.
Okay.
Because the results of all of the work are communicated to the people they're doing the work for.
Right.
And it might be a written report, it might be verbally, but usually it's a written report, and the written skills it's the hard thing for him to get. He can get technical people. They might not have exactly the skills he wants, but you can learn those pretty easily as a technical person.
Yeah.
It just takes some time and experience.
Now, do you think those skills, those soft skills, are easy to learn for someone that maybe be a little bit awkward?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
They are. For us, we tend to think of them as being harder sometimes, even though they might be called soft skills.
Right.
For me, they were harder than the technical stuff, but no, anybody can. For example, writing.
Right.
I'm traditionally a horrible writer.
Okay.
My parents moved 20 years ago, and in the archaeological dig of moving out of their old house, the house I grew up in, we found some old papers I wrote in high school. Man, was I a bad writer. I was horrible.
Right.
And I've written 3 books now. It's
Right.
like writing's a skill you can learn. It's not that hard. You learn it by doing it. And I speak a lot now. I was always a very shy geek.
Okay.
And, half of my work now is actually public speaking, whether it's a keynote like here,
Right.
or whether it's teaching a formal class on some specific topic,
Right.
whether it's technical or, strategic planning for security. And I remember the first 2 times I spoke. The first time I was pretty young. I was terrified to stand up and speak.
Okay.
And just looking at me in grad school, I did do a little teaching there. I wasn't good at it. I didn't like it. I didn't mind doing it, but it was not a skill.
Right.
But I'm so much better at that now. It's a skill you build like anything else.
Right. Awesome. Now, do you have any tips, like the viewers that are watching that? Because did you just go out and start speaking, or was there some course you took? And we just talked about to Andrew, and he was talking about he did improv.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any strategy they have for someone maybe an introvert?
That's great. I would love to take an improv class, and I've actually been thinking about that. There's an organization a lot of people join called Toastmasters.
Okay.
And so many people I know have joined. It's almost free. It's a nonprofit, and they teach leadership and speaking skills.
Okay.
And they have you speak in a friendly environment.
Right.
And you get better at speaking by speaking. I
Right.
mean, and it's not that hard. We all know, or almost all of us know how to talk.
Right.
Right? And I've taken 2 things that were weaknesses of mine, communication, specifically writing and speaking, and they become strengths of mine just because I've done it.
Right.
The interesting thing is I found I actually like doing these things.
Okay.
I didn't think I would.
Right. But as you started to do it, you got more comfortable.
Exactly.
Awesome. Now, with Toastmasters, if you guys haven't checked that out, I actually did Toastmasters for a little bit as well.
Okay, great.
And critique you in a warm environment. Maybe if you say "ah" a few times, they count it out and let you know you said "ah" 7 times. So
Right.
maybe take your time and practice a little bit more. So they give you these skills that also now your speech is clear. You know, you're relaxed in environment, and it's in a comfortable, you know, environment with your colleagues that you're talking to that gives you critiques that you don't have to feel nervous, because I think that's one of the big things is as a public speaker you're worried about being critiqued.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And, you know, I know a lot of people say, I don't know enough about security to go speak about it.
Right.
I just don't have enough experience. That's probably not true. We all have something to share. However, you can also give a talk on anything to get teaching experience. For example, I've given talks on ham radio,
Right.
on champagne, on
Okay.
fly fishing. These are all like hobbies of mine.
Right.
And I've spoken to like various groups that I have about them.
Right.
And, you know, you get experience speaking by doing that. I actually gave a demonstration on tying flies for fly fishing for striped bass, and I gave a talk along with that.
Right.
Like, that was a really easy talk for me to give, you know,
Right.
because a bunch of friends were there.
Right.
And warm environment, everyone's interested, and it's not like, I'm not worthy. It's like, well, I know how to do this.
Right.
And, you know, you get experience speaking, which, boy, is that a valuable skill in our field.
For sure. And it's like, and if you guys don't know, if you're coming into the field, you have to be able to articulate, because you're talking to clients, right? And you have to be able to be in a calm manner, be clear, concise,
Absolutely.
right? And then be able to be comfortable, because I was just talking just recently with several people, is you're going in the worst situation that they have. They've been compromised, they've been hacked, and you can't take that on and feel like all pressured if they're going, so our network went down, our server, how are you going to fix this? You can't go, oh my God. You have to be like, okay.
Right. You're there to help.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got to convey that in a calm fashion, in a professional fashion, and nobody expects you to be a professional speaker and polished. And
Right.
you don't need to be.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. And then,
I'm sure in my keynote there were a few uhs and ehs and
yeah,
maybe an A or two.
that you threw in there.
Yeah.
But then it just makes it comfortable. It's because it's your normal speak, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Perfect. Now, let's talk about the InfoSec Rock Star. And this is a great book. If you guys haven't grabbed it, go grab it. It's a great book, and I think every security professional needs to grab this because, and I'll just go through some of the levels here that you have, is that if you're surviving and you're trying to get in the field, right, and you're just trying to make money, he goes through strategies about that. You know, if you're stable, you're an expert, you know, you become an authoritative figure and a rock star. And I'd love to hear, like, why did you develop this book? Why was this InfoSec Rock Star your passion?
Well, it's interesting. When I was young, when I first got into the field, I'm going to say it was 2 years ago when I was young, but
a long time ago, right?
I thought the way to get ahead, to be successful, you know, to have people listen to me, to make a positive difference, and yeah, to make more money.
Right.
I thought it was to be as technical as possible.
Okay.
You know, the technical skills, that was it. And I didn't think about it. It's like, that's just what it was. The more geek you were, the better.
Right.
And like, yeah, we want to be really technical. That's important. But I thought that was all that it was. Then as my career went on, I found less technical people were just doing amazing things that I wish I could do.
Right.
And I was like, well, I'm more of a geek than they are. So I became interested. Why are some of my colleagues who, like, they weren't as technical as I was, why are they just doing this cool stuff? Why are they more successful? Why are they more listened to? Why are they getting more done? And yeah, why some cases were they making more money?
Right.
So I started to talk to who I consider to be really successful people in security.
Right.
And some of them, like you've heard, and are big names. Some of them nobody ever heard of, and,
Right.
but they're doing cool things. And not everyone agreed on everything that mattered,
Okay.
but there was a lot of overlap. Everyone agreed that the geek, the technical, will only get you so far.
Right.
Geek will only get you so far. You need that.
Right.
And everyone agreed that among the really successful people I talked to, that there were other skills that are equally important to the technical skills, like communications,
Right.
like being able to actually finish things. And as a group, we're not great at finishing things.
Okay.
I know I'm not. I mean, I work on this.
Right.
You know, other skills like that.
Right.
Knowing something, we're always involved in projects, knowing something about project management. You don't need to know a lot.
Right.
You know, just having some basic understanding of these things.
Right. Now, these levels that you have in there, you have like survivors, stable, expert, authority. Is it easy to go from level to level? I mean, with effort and work, but is it possible to do it, or is it only the unique, 5% that can do it?
Absolutely, everyone can do it. When you start out, you're at the survive level. For example, I worked with some people in their first job in technology with an insurance company. They were just right out of school. Two of them were literally living in their parents' basements,
Wow.
And they were psyched with this job. But they were in the survive. They needed the job.
Right.
Two of them wanted to move out of their parents' house.
Right.
They had student loans, and they were just getting started professionally. There's survive.
Right.
At some point, you're stable. I mean, you've got a good job.
Yeah.
Not every part of it's going to be great,
right.
but most of it's great. There's parts of what I do I don't like filling out expense reports for travel, and
right.
But most of what I do I absolutely love.
Right.
But you're stable, and
right.
if you lose your job, you can get another one.
Right.
It might take you a week, it might take you 2 months, but you're stable. You can get another job if you need to.
Right.
Now, as you're working, you're going to naturally build expertise.
Right.
Right? You just become an expert naturally. And we don't understand the concept of expert that well.
Okay.
Expert doesn't mean you know everything.
Right.
Expert means you have valuable skills that can benefit other people.
Right.
And we naturally build expertise if we're halfway decent.
Right.
And halfway care. And I'm going to bet that's a pretty low bar for everybody listening here.
Right.
You don't necessarily get expert status. People don't necessarily know that you're smart and you have this knowledge.
Now, is there a stigma for expert? Like from what I hear from in the cybersecurity field, as I'm talking to people, if you're an expert, you're a know-it-all, you're this, and then people try to challenge you. Is that kind of stigma that there's there?
There's a little stigma, but I think it's more self-imposed by people.
Okay.
It's like, I was never comfortable being called an expert.
Okay.
Now, if you're an expert, it doesn't mean you know everything.
Right.
If you think you know everything, you're not an expert, you're a bozo.
Right.
I like to say Einstein was an expert,
right.
but you don't need to be an Einstein to be an expert.
Right.
Now, if you go around saying, I am an expert, it's
right.
like, yeah, you're probably a pompous person, you
right.
know. But you build this expertise,
right.
and there's lots of things you can do to highlight it, like speaking at conferences
right.
or writing papers or just helping people.
Right.
Certainly you want good things about you online, so
right.
if people Google you and they always look you up, your expertise is highlighted.
Right.
Something as simple as LinkedIn.
Right.
I think all professionals should be in LinkedIn,
right.
unless there's a good reason not to.
Right.
Few jobs maybe you shouldn't be.
And something like security or
yeah.
Department of Defense, things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
there's a few, not
yeah.
that many. But, when people Google you, well, Google and the other search engines, they love LinkedIn. And
right.
so something pops up right away, and you write what's there, and you want it to be honest, but highlight your accomplishments.
So being an expert, just to kind of qualify for you guys understand, what I'm understanding is it's more about the actions that you do, getting out there, that makes you the expert versus me just putting on my card, I'm an expert.
Right.
So it's more the actions. So like, guys, if you guys are thinking about, doing some of the things and going through these levels, and like Ted's saying is, do the actions. Go out and talk. Go out and speak. Go out to teach. Do all these things. Write a white paper. Like, do that. Show that you're that value.
And one simple thing to do that's very valuable is volunteering.
Right.
For like various conferences and other security events, they're always looking for people to help.
Right.
And not only are you, in a way, you're running the show. I mean, that gives you a lot of credibility, but you're going to meet some really cool people, and you're going to have a good time as well.
Right.
Right, as well as develop professionally.
Right. Perfect.
Now, I talk about authority.
Right. Well, that's the next level.
That's the next level above expert. And as an authority, you're definitely an expert,
right.
plus something else. Maybe you're speaking at conferences.
Right.
Maybe you've done some open source work.
Right.
Maybe you've written a book, and it's not that hard to write. If I can write a book, anyone can write a book.
Okay.
I mean, seriously,
yeah.
most of us can. It's a lot of work, but
yeah.
you can do it.
Right.
And sometimes people use terms like thought leader, and I don't love that word.
Thought leader,
it's overused.
Influencer.
Yeah. It's like, if you're not a thought leader, does that mean you're a thought follower?
Right.
Well, I'm a thought follower.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely pay attention to what all kinds of people say. You can learn from everybody,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's like the concept of rock star.
Right.
Now, I'm not a rock star.
Right.
But it's something to work towards.
Right.
It's, rock star, you're an expert.
Right.
you have authority, and you're better known, you're better respected because you get stuff done.
Right.
You take action.
Right.
And the better known you are, and none of us really want to be on the cover of People magazine and have people hassle us for autographs walking down there, but that's not going to happen, right? We don't need to worry about that. But the better known you are, the more good you can do.
Right.
Right?
And the more opportunities
more opportunities come to you, absolutely.
Now, do you find there's a little bit of a line where, for example, like you do a survival, stability, and expert, it's kind of that line where now you're working, you're doing all that, but once you turn to an authoritative figure, now you start to get people contacting you to do talks, presentations?
People do. Yeah. Now, there isn't a distinct line between these levels, and the 5 levels are somewhat arbitrary. They're just a framework for discussion, kind of like the 7 layers of the OSI model, right? They could have had 9 layers or 5 layers, but 7 was reasonable. 5 is reasonable here. And you could be at a certain level, but have some skills that are another level. For example, I have this one friend, Large John, one of my oldest friends, and he bounces between stable and survive. There's times he needs a job. There's times he's bordering on homeless. He's one of my lazier friends, one of my smarter friends, also one of the happiest guys I know. I mean, more power to him. And he's never above stable. But he is a phenomenal writer. He is a rock star of a writer. I wish I could write like he did. It just flows out naturally from it. Almost he doesn't need to edit it, you know? And so, I mean, you can be at a lower level and have rock star skills in certain areas, for sure. And I don't think anyone ever really makes it to rock star. I mean, it's the idea that we can always improve, we can always get better. And quite honestly, if someone shows up and say, "Oh, I'm an expert," or "I'm a rock star," it's like you're gonna kind of scratch your head, like, "Yeah, I don't know I'm not sure about that person." It's something to aspire to, and we can all get better.
For sure.
We can all improve, and boy, there's so much to learn in this field.
Oh, and it never stops.
It never stops. You got to keep the technical skills up, but there's so many other things that you need.
Right. So you guys understand, and I think this is what I'm getting to, is that it's not a label. It's not something I'm going to call myself.
Right.
It's a strategy to kind of improve and evolve.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that was the one thing I was reading online when I was kind of reading the reviews. People had that stigma of rock star. Oh, you're a rock star. And it's like, and when I read your book, it was like, no, it's the philosophy and the strategy of using the skills that you have and evolving.
Exactly. Right. And it's not a term that I picked. It's just a term that when I'm talking to people, they use. Right?
And I agree with the term, like from my point of view, when I see, like I ran a marketing company, having a rock star and developing up to that is something you, like everyone want to do, because you want to strive to that next level. You want to be known in your field. You want to be able to do talks and presentations at conferences. You want to be asked for your level of expertise.
Absolutely.
Right? And it's something that I totally believe in your book, is that it gives you that strategy and the information, the value behind it to do that, right? And to have that strategy.
Absolutely, Brandon.
So that's great. I mean, was there anything else you'd like to add, Ted? Just if anyone's watching this, some tips, some strategies?
Well, I'd like to say that the book isn't all my thoughts. It's it's really a community project. I mean, there's so many people that I interviewed, both sometimes formal interviews, a lot of interviews were over a beer or a cup of coffee or maybe 2 beers,
Yeah.
And so it's not just me. I mean, it's really what works in our field.
Right. So you've got kind of like a little bit of a research on, how to become, that rock star, that expert in the field. You've asked several people and said, look,
dozens.
That accumulation of it is all in this book.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, Ted, I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure, Brandon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And guys, just want to remind you, go check out his book, InfoSec Rock Star. You can get the hard copy as well as it's on Amazon.
Amazon,
Kindle,
Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. It's in all the stores and online and offline.
For sure. So I'll have the link below in the description so you guys can check that out. And I just want to remind you guys, don't forget, and I'll just put it up here, software is hackable, being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next video.